Hey there, this is Margaret Gill, and welcome back to my top 10 speaking tips. I've been having trouble saying that. Top 10 speaking tips. I'll give you a little tip. When you're on the way to a talk and you've got something like that in your talk that catches you every time, you get in the car and you keep saying it and saying it and saying it till you get to the event, till it rolls off your tongue. Top 10 speaking tips, top 10 speaking tips, over and over and over again until it just rolls off your tongue. And you'll only need to do that once, funnily enough. Once you get that in the memory of your mouth, you'll be able to do it. But yeah, talk through the things that you can't over and over and over again while you're doing the dishes. Top 10 speaking tips, top 10 speaking tips, top 10 speaking tips, until you can do it. Much of this is repetition. Much of what you need to get happening to be a good speaker is just repetition and good preparation. So let's go through the tips that we've had already. We've had speak on topics that you are passionate about and know a lot about. So we've started to see now why we would do that. Don't ever talk on things you don't know anything about, because it's just crazy to do that, because that's where the audience will turn on you. I once had a guy called Brendan Nichols, who was the first person that I learned speaking from. He taught me how to do and earn the right, and he was the person that shook into me the value of what I offered a room when I had no speaking training or anything like that. I just got up at his event and did a quick talk, and he asked the room, he stood behind me and he put his hands on my shoulders and he asked the room to put their hand up and only put their hand up if the statement he was going to say next was the truth. And the statement was, Margaret is an authentic person. Margaret is a true and authentic person. And everybody put their hand up in the room, and he grabbed my shoulders and he shook me. He said, see that? Look at them. They've all got their hands up. None of them are lying. And it was really interesting. And he asked another question, which I've forgotten now, and the same thing happened. Everybody put their hand up. And it's something that has stayed with me for a very long time, and it's why I invented Courageous Speaking, is that I want to get that safe place for you where you get to feel a room and you get to be able to understand the power and the passion that you bring to your topic by actually delivering it to the there are 5 people that you deliver to. There's 6 in the group, 6 in the class, and you deliver it to the other 5, and we circle around. So you get to hear the other 5 people's story and you tell your story. And at the end of that, you know people like you've never known them before. It's like, wow, it's amazing what you learn about people when you're that vulnerable and you're telling them a story you really don't want to tell, and you do it, you achieve it. Man, the friendships that are made in there are really amazing. So being passionate and knowing a lot about what you talk about is really important. And as you see people speak in the class, you'll understand the power of that. You'll understand the knowing that goes into that person when you see them tell their story. So the second tip is know your target market and never speak outside of it. That's in the early days. Once you've got the stage mastered, you can speak wherever you like. But I still recommend that you speak to audiences. I'll tell you why. This is. In my early gung-ho days as a coach, we were told that we had to get out speaking. And I thought it would be and Rotary was one of the things that people said to me, go and speak to Rotary. It's easy. It's easy to get a gig because they're always looking for speakers. And so I was working part-time for the guy that was in Rotary in my little small town. And so I said to him one day, do you want me to come and do a talk for your organisation? And it just happened to be that another Rotarian was in the room, and he goes, ask him, he books the speakers. What's the chances? But anyway, so I got a speaking gig at Rotary. And at the end, and I was talking about coaching and talk about ego. Don't ever go in and try and convince a room about something. But I did. In my very first talk, I went in there and I tried to convert that room to the thought of coaching, which in those days was so new and so foreign to everybody. These days, everybody's got a coach, but I was there at the cutting edge. And I told these Rotarians who were a very small group for a very small town all about coaching in my talk. And at the end, the president gets up, and he's the local sparky, I think, or plumber or something like that. And he comes over to me, and he's got a little present in his hand, a little pen. And he goes, "Here's your pen, Margaret. Thank you for coming along. It's been very nice of you." He said, "I hope none of our members need your services, but it's been lovely that you've come along." And I went, "Oh, geez." I just went, whoop, and I went out of there about, 2 inches tall, because I failed. I broke all the rules. You see, when I was at the International Coach Federation, I was in the rules. People that know and love my topic, coaching. And I took my topic to somebody to an audience that had no idea what coaching is, couldn't have cared less, would be never likely to employ a coach anyway. So I decided I would do that. It was a big lesson for me, a very big lesson. They thought I was talking about counselling, and they thought that I was a complete nutter. It did turn out some years later, somebody that was in the audience, a lady that was in the audience, told me how much she enjoyed my talk and how much she admired me for getting up there and saying what I said to that group of people. And I'm like, oh God, I didn't realise, did I? I just didn't realise. And this is why you need to come to my talk, because I'm going to cover things like this. And it's really important that you don't go into an audience that don't want to hear what you've got to say, or will misinterpret what you've said purely because their life experiences have been different. They've been very different to yours and don't do it. Just don't do it. And I've had a couple of people after the event have phoned me up and went, "Oh, Marg, you know how you told us?" So they've come to Courageous Speaking, and they've taken it away, and they've written down, "Don't talk to Rotary because because of la la la." And a lady rang me up and said, "Marg, you know how you told us not to talk to Rotary?" She said, "Well, I thought I could." And I went, "How did it go, darling?" And she said, "Really badly." She said, "Really, really badly." She said, "I should have taken your advice." And it's not that Rotary is a bad audience. It's that they need a mainstream topic. So if you are going to speak to Rotary, teach something mainstream in the main part of your story. Don't try and convince them of anything, or don't try to push something that would make them uncomfortable if you were talking to them in their home. So me talking about what they perceived, they perceived I was talking about counselling. You wouldn't have spoken to those people about that topic at their kitchen table. So taking it into their Rotary experience, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. So you really need to be careful what speaking gigs you do at the start. But look, go ahead and prove me wrong. I would love you to go and talk to a Rotary and be very successful, because they're an awesome group of people. They're an amazing group of people. You just have to be careful. You just have to realise there are a lot of different types of people in the room in a Rotary group. So if you just sectioned off the women perhaps and spoke to Rotary women, that would be fine if your topic is on women's topics. But if you go in there and talk to the men as well on women's topics, you're going to be in trouble. Trust me, you're going to be in trouble. I wasn't part of this, but many years back, I volunteered at a rape crisis centre, and I was their treasurer for quite some time, and I had to go along with a couple of the volunteers to, I don't think it was Rotary, but it was something similar, and they did a talk on the rape crisis centre to this group, and you could see the discomfort in the room. This is well before I knew anything about this. They were really uncomfortable with the talk, and we were ushered out there really fast, really quickly, out of that thing, and you could tell it didn't go well. It didn't go down well because too confronting, just too confronting. Good on the girls for getting up there and do it. I didn't have to speak at that one. I just went along for moral support. But yeah, be careful of your audience. And like I say, Rotary is not a bad audience, but there's a very mixed group of people in there. And finding their common ground is the answer if you're going to talk to those sort of people. So find some Rotarians. If you are invited, find a couple of Rotarians and ask what they believe has been the most popular topics at their events, and tap into that sort of knowledge. Work the room, as they say, work the room. So we're going to start our talk at least 1 week out. Start writing our talk at least 1 week out, but preferably a month out. We're going to practice and tweak, practice and tweak, practice and tweak. We're going to make our start and finish impactful, and we're going to have notes that are just bullet points, and we're going to speak without notes. We're going to keep it succinct, and we're not going to tell them everything at once. That's our tip for today. Don't over prepare too much stuff, and don't bombard them with facts and figures and information. That you're better to have one great statistic that they will remember than a PowerPoint full of 10 different statistics. They won't remember that. They'll switch off when you do those sorts of things. So we want brief and succinct points, because you've only got about 5 minutes per point to get your point across. You're better to have short little bits and pieces, like the series. It's short little bits and pieces that you can take in at a little bit and then switch off and move on to the next part another day, and then you can come back and you can go, and that's the key, is short little pieces of information, particularly in this day and age where we are bombarded with so much information. People switch off. So keep it brief and succinct, and don't try to tell them everything. Leave them wanting more. It's the old rock and roll. Remember in rock and roll, you go to a rock and roll or even an opera or an audience like that. Leave them wanting more. Don't stay on the stage until all of the audience have gone home and there's only one person going, more, we want more. You leave the audience wanting more. And if you can just break your points down and make them brief and succinct, what you'll find is that you'll have a much more powerful talk than trying to bombard people with a lot of information. So don't over prepare. And that's why another reason why you practice is because you time yourself. You get your little timer out and you practice your talk over and over until you can do it in the time frame that you are allowed. And be aware that you will always deliver, you will always need less information on the night than you practiced. I don't know why that happens, but you will find that on the night when you speak, or in the day, whatever time you speak, time is different on the stage for whatever reason, whether you slow it down. I don't know what happens, but you always end up with more. So my tip is, if you've got 3 points you're making and you're going to have 4 tips, say, under each point, so you've got 3 core things that you want the audience to take away, 3 core concepts, and you're going to put 4 tips underneath. In your last one, maybe do 6 tips, so you're safe, you feel safe, you've got enough information, but put the top 3 at the top. And the last one at the bottom is a power one. And if you're running out of time, just go straight to that power one at the bottom. So you would deliver, say you delivered point 1 and point 2, and you look at the clock and you go, I'm out of time. I need to move on now. Skip 4 and 5 and go straight to 6. But make sure 6 is a really good point. And that's a great tip, because for whatever reason, you might be able to do the talk in the allotted time at home, but once you get on the stage, time takes it's different. And so that's my little tip on that one. So keep it succinct, folks. It's really important. And I look forward to seeing you in the next session very soon. Thanks for listening. Be remarkable. Bye now.